I want you to picture a landscape that is just absolutely brutal. You are standing on the freezing, windswept tundra of the Pleistocene epoch.
Oh, yeah. Not a very hospitable place.
Not at all. The ground is literally shaking under your feet. Everywhere you look, there are these massive, heavily armored megafauna just roaming through the snow.
Right.
And stalking them are some of the most terrifying apex predators the Earth has ever produced. I mean, you have the saber-toothed cat equipped with these devastating, hyper-specialized cranial weapons.
Oh, and the short-faced bear.
Yes, a gargantuan monster that can look a human in the eye while standing on all fours. Plus, bone-crushing cave hyenas. It's an era defined entirely by pure, overwhelming physical dominance.
It was essentially an absolute arms race of brute force and, hyper-lethality.
Yeah.
If you were a predator trying to survive in that specific ecosystem, the evolutionary pressure demanded that you be massive, immensely powerful, and capable of inflicting catastrophic damage in a single strike.
Right. The entire logic of the Ice Age was built on overwhelming mechanical power.
Exactly.
But the wild part is what happens next. Because as the Ice Age ended, the climate violently shifted, and human hunters entered the picture. And those hyper-specialized, unstoppable killing machines, they just vanished.
Yeah, they hit an evolutionary wall.
Right. All that heavy armor, the mechanical jaw power, the massive claws, it suddenly wasn't enough to survive. So who actually conquered the globe? Who walked out of the Pleistocene alive?
The Grey Wolf.
The Grey Wolf. Welcome to Audio Notebook. Today we are exploring this crazy biological mystery. We are unpacking how a predator bypassed the evolutionary arms race of pure physical power and survived through incredible biological plasticity, mathematical endurance, and a social flexibility that ultimately altered the course of human history.
Yeah, and to really understand how the wolf pulled that off, we have to travel back way beyond the Ice Age.
Okay, how far back?
We have to go back about 58 to 59 million years.
Oh wow, that is deep time.
Right, to a phylogenetic split in the mammalian order Carnivora. This single fork in the road basically dictated the predatory strategies for all modern mammals. The ancestors of modern carnivores split into two suborders.
Okay.
You have the feliforms, which encompass your cats and hyenas, and you have the caniforms, which include dogs, wolves, and bears.
Right, and I was looking at the skeletal differences between these two,
Yeah.
and it essentially boils down to a literal fork in the road regarding the shape of the skull.
Specifically the snout.
Yeah, the snout.
It's known in evolutionary biology as the snout length compromise. Feliforms, so the cats, they went down an evolutionary path that resulted in highly shortened, compact skulls.
Because they needed bite force.
Exactly. The pressure was on them to develop a uniform, extraordinarily powerful bite force. To survive, a cat needs to deliver a precision killing strike, usually slipping their teeth between vertebrae to sever the spinal cord.
Or clamping down to crush the trachea.
Right. Think of the saber-toothed cat. Its skull evolved almost entirely to accommodate massive upper canines and allow for a huge gape angle.
But that extreme specialization comes with severe biological packs.
Right. It really does.
Because if your snout is short and pushed in, you just don't have the real estate in your mouth for different kinds of teeth. It makes me think of a feline mouth as like this highly specialized assassin's scalpel.
That is a great analogy.
It does one thing perfectly. It slices meat and inflicts rapid lethal damage. But if you need to do anything else, you're pretty much out of luck.
Yeah.
But a wolf's mouth, because of that elongated snout, they actually have the room to carry around a survivalist multi-tool.
That is the perfect way to conceptualize it. The cat's shortened snout restricts it to being a hypercarnivorous ambush predator. They are locked into that lifestyle.
They can't adapt.
Exactly. But the wolf, by retaining the elongated snout, kept a complete, highly differentiated dental arcade. They have tiny incisors at the front for delicate nibbling and grooming.
Right.
They have massive canines for grasping and puncturing, premolars for shearing, and most crucially, in the back, they have functional molars with flattened surfaces.
Which brings up a really crucial biological mechanism, the carnassial teeth. This seems to be the secret weapon of their survival.
It absolutely is. The carnassial shear is the defining trait that separates carnivorans from other mammals. We measure the utility of these teeth using a metric called relative blade length, or RBL.
RBO, right?
It's simply the ratio of the cutting blade to the total length of the tooth. In a strict hypercarnivore, like a cougar, that RBL is near 1.0.
Meaning it's all blade.
Right, their tooth is virtually 100% devoted to slicing meat. Imagine a pair of scissors. You can cut a steak with scissors, but try using them to crush a rock.
You can't, it would just break the scissors.
Exactly. A cougar cannot grind anything.
So a cat's mouth is all blade, no flat surface. But a wolf is built differently.
Right. The wolf has a moderate RBL. Their teeth have the sharp blade section required for shearing muscle, but they also retain a structure called a talonid basin.
A talented basin.
Yes. It's a flattened area at the back of the tooth used exclusively for grinding and crushing. This is the pliers to the cat scissors.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because of that talonid basin, wolves can process and crack open thick bones to extract nutrient-dense marrow.
Which is huge in the Ice Age.
Massive. During an incredibly harsh winter when all the prey is dead or hiding and food is almost non-existent, that grinding ability is literally the difference between life and death.
And it goes deeper than just surviving a winter. That dental setup allows them to rapidly shear off small chunks of meat, swallow them whole, and carry them in their stomachs like a biological backpack.
Yeah, the regurgitation factor.
Right. They can travel miles back to the den and regurgitate that semi-digested food for their pups.
And without that precise mechanical shearing ability, they couldn't safely regurgitate food, the pups would starve.
Wow.
So the entire cooperative rearing of their young, the very foundation of their pack structure and family unit, is biomechanically reliant on the shape of that specific tooth.
That is wild. So because they are equipped with this multi-tool instead of a feline scalpel, they can't just hide behind a bush and wait for a meal to wander by.
No, they don't have the explosive grappling power of a cat.
Right. They have to actually go out and find the food across vast, freezing, open distances. And that elongated snout isn't just a container for a variety of teeth. It's an unparalleled sensory chamber.
Oh, the sheer scale of their sensory architecture is staggering. Humans have about 5 million olfactory receptors in our noses.
Okay, 5 million. And a wolf.
A wolf has upwards of 280 million.
That is absurd.
The inside of their nasal cavity is this intricate labyrinth of turbinate bones covered in scent recepting tissue. But it's not just the raw number of receptors that makes them incredible trackers, it's the fluid dynamics of how they actually breathe.
The actual mechanics of the sniff.
Exactly. When a wolf takes a sniff, the airflow is physically split inside the snout. Think of it like a built-in centrifuge. Yeah. About 12 to 13% of the inhaled air is shunted into a special upper olfactory recess where the odor molecules are trapped and held.
And what about the rest of the air?
The rest bypasses that area and goes directly to the lungs so the animal can keep breathing while running.
Wow. And even when they exhale, the aerodynamics of their snout force the air out through the side slits of their nose, which creates a swirl that kicks up more scent from the ground, right?
Yep, keeping that trapped air circulating over their receptors.
That is just incredible. But I was looking at the neurology of how they process those scents, and there's this really weird detail about how they use their nostrils.
The lateralization.
Yeah. When a wolf encounters a totally new scent, they only use their right nostril. I mean, why on earth would a wolf care which nostril it sniffs with?
It is a phenomenal quirk of neurobiology called sniffing lateralization. When a wolf encounters a novel or highly arousing scent, say, they pick up the adrenaline of a prey animal or the territorial marking of a rival predator, they sample it exclusively with the right nostril.
Because of the brain hemispheres.
Right. That is because the right nostril feeds directly into the right hemisphere of the brain. That hemisphere is responsible for processing novel stimuli and immediately triggering the sympathetic nervous system.
The fight or flight response.
Exactly. The brain needs to instantly decide, is this food or is this a threat?
And then what happens once they know?
Once the wolf's brain categorizes the scent, realizes what it is, and it becomes familiar, they actually shift to processing it with their left nostril, which handles routine, non-threatening analysis.
It is engineered perfection.
It really is.
And their hearing and vision are tuned the exact same way for macro environments. Yeah, people always assume cats have quote-unquote better hearing and sight than dogs or wolves. But better is entirely relative to the job.
Well, yeah, a cat does have incredible high-frequency hearing. They can hear up to about 85,000 hertz.
Which is really high.
But you have to ask why. It's because they evolved to detect the ultrasonic squeaks and the tiny, subtle rustlings of small rodents hiding under a pile of leaves. They are tuned for microenvironments.
Right, but wolves are different.
Wolves top out at around 60,000 hertz, but they are vastly more sensitive to low-frequency sounds.
Because a low-frequency acoustic wave can travel for miles across an open, windy tundra without losing its energy.
Exactly.
A wolf isn't trying to hear a mouse under a leaf. They're listening for the heavy hoofbeats of a caribou herd 5 miles away through a blizzard.
And we see this exact same macrospatial tuning in their eyes. Take a look at the pupil geometry of different animals. Ambush predators, like cats and foxes, have vertical slit pupils.
Right. Let's actually define what that does, because a vertical slit creates what biologists call an astigmatic depth of field.
Yeah.
The easiest way to picture that is the portrait mode on your phone's camera. It keeps the subject in hyperfocus, but blurs out the foreground and the background. If you are a cat, you need that precise, localized distance calculation so you can execute a perfect, lethal pounce from a complete standstill.
That's it exactly. And prey animals, on the other hand, like horses or sheep, have horizontal pupils.
To see the predators coming.
Right, it gives them a panoramic, wide-angle warning view to spot predators coming from the sides. But the wolf has large, circular pupils because wolves are what we call cursorial hunters.
Meaning they run.
They run long distances. Circular pupils provide a uniform, high-resolution focus across the entire visual field. When a wolf is sprinting at top speed over uneven, rocky terrain locked onto a fleeing target, they need a seamless, stable visual field.
They need action camera stabilization, not portrait mode.
That is a perfect way to put it.
So the wolf's radar has pinpointed a caribou herd miles away. The wide-angle lens is locked on, but sensing the prey doesn't put calories in the bank. They actually have to close the distance and run it down, which requires an entirely different biological toolkit.
A completely different system, yeah.
Because when a wolf catches up to its prey, it doesn't fight like a cat. A feline relies on stealth, closing the gap quickly, and then engaging in this explosive anaerobic grappling match.
Oh.
But wrestling massive animals causes the cat to overheat rapidly and builds up huge amounts of lactic acid.
The biomechanical trade-off is stark there. If you evolve heavy, thick, circular bone structures with massive muscle attachments for wrestling and grappling, you have terrible running economy.
You are a power lifter, not a marathon runner.
Right. The wolf skeleton is the opposite. Their limb bones are relatively stiff and brittle, which is perfect for elastic energy storage. They act like springs bouncing off the ground.
Oh, interesting.
They have rigid spinal mechanics to maintain forward momentum without wasting energy swaying side to side. And their claws aren't retractable, razor-sharp weapons like a cat's. They are fixed, blunt, and act entirely like cleats to provide traction in the dirt and snow.
They are the ultimate biological marathon runners. I was reading a study on their aerobic capacity, their VO2 max.
Oh, the hound and puma study.
Yeah. Researchers put accelerometer and GPS collars on hunting hounds and the wild pumas they were chasing. The data showed that the fleeing puma was burning energy at 1.6 times the rate of the pursuing dog.
It's incredible.
The feline is operating in an absolute panic state, burning through its energy reserves instantly, while the canid is practically just jogging. The wolf literally turns the hunt into a mathematical certainty.
They force the prey into a prolonged aerobic contest that the prey biologically cannot win.
Wow.
Escaping a predator requires massive, instantaneous energy investments. Whether it's an elk or a bison, the prey will invariably reach metabolic failure before the wolf gets tired.
But the actual culmination of that hunt is where I have to push back a little on the majestic, noble image of the wolf. Because the reality of how they take down an animal 10 times their size, like a 1,000-pound moose, is horrifically brutal.
Oh, it is.
They don't leap up and deliver a swift, merciful neck bite. They attack the hindquarters, the hamstrings, the perineum. It is a grueling, agonizing death.
It is incredibly violent. The biological term is attrition predation, but you have to view it through the lens of sheer survival. The wolf has a moderate bite force and no grappling arms. If a 100-pound wolf tries to tackle a fully energized, 1,000-pound moose from the front, one kick from a hoof or a single strike from an antler will shatter the wolf's ribs and kill it instantly.
So they can't risk a frontal assault.
No, so they implement a model of cumulative physiological breakdown. They are essentially letting the prey's own body do the killing.
Let's walk through the mechanics of that breakdown because it is fascinating and terrifying. The blunt force of the wolf's jaws causes deep tissue lacerations.
Yes.
And as the moose keeps running, it suffers from massive hemorrhaging and hypovolemic shock, which basically means it's losing so much blood volume that its heart can't pump enough to keep its organs functioning.
And while the physical damage is happening, the sheer psychological terror of being chased triggers the brain's alarm system, the HPA axis.
The stress response.
Exactly. The brain screams that the animal is dying and floods the system with massive amounts of cortisol. This stress response is so extreme that the prey's body shifts into a catabolic state.
Meaning the animal is panicking so hard and burning so much energy that its body literally starts metabolizing and eating its own muscle tissue just to find the fuel to keep running.
Yes, the wolves just keep kiting the animal, doing bluff charges, darting in and out. They are waiting for minute 30, hour 2, hour 3.
Just grinding them down.
They wait until the prey simply collapses from cardiovascular failure, hemorrhagic shock, and total mechanical exhaustion.
It's an overwhelmingly safe strategy for the wolf, but you cannot pull off attrition predation on a bison by yourself. You need a highly coordinated team.
Absolutely.
But how does that team actually operate? Because for decades, we've all been sold this pop culture idea of the alpha wolf. You know, the stereotype, the dictatorial, aggressive leader demanding submission from the pack through violence and dominance.
I am so glad you brought this up. The alpha wolf concept is arguably one of the most pervasive, damaging myths in modern biology.
Totally.
Yes, it originated from a heavily flawed 1947 study by a researcher named Rudolf Schenkel. He observed captive wolves in an artificial enclosure.
Okay, captive wolves.
But these were unrelated individuals from different areas trapped together in a confined space. What he was observing was basically the equivalent of a prison yard.
Oh, wow.
He created a highly unnatural, stressful environment, witnessed violent power struggles, and incorrectly assumed that was how wolves operated in nature.
So he basically put stressed out strangers in a telephone booth, watched them fight, and wrote a paper on it.
That is exactly what happened.
And now, 80 years later, if you've ever called someone an alpha male in the corporate boardroom or at the gym, you are basing that entire identity on a debunked study of terrified animals in a cage.
Exactly. When modern field biologists, most notably Dr. L. David Mack, spent years observing actual wild wolves in places like Ellesmere Island, they completely dismantled the alpha theory.
So what is the actual dynamic?
A wild wolf pack is not a violent militaristic hierarchy, it is simply a nuclear family.
It's a family.
The so-called alphas are just a mom and dad, and the rest of the pack are their kids from consecutive breeding years. When you see a subordinate wolf roll over on its belly to expose its throat, it is not cowering in fear of a violent dictator.
What is it?
It is a spontaneous, affectionate act of familial bonding. It's the equivalent of a child hugging their parent.
That is totally different. But wait, if there's no master general barking orders, how do they coordinate these incredibly complex flanking maneuvers during a hunt? I mean, if you watch aerial footage of wolves hunting elk, it looks like they are executing a master strategic plan.
It does look like that, and we tend to project human-like strategic planning onto animals. We assume there must be a commander, but recent artificial intelligence modeling has shown something totally counterintuitive.
Which is?
You can completely replicate the elaborate flanking and encircling maneuvers of a wild wolf pack using algorithms that follow just two incredibly simple, localized rules.
Okay, what are the two rules?
Rule 1, move toward the prey.
Yay, makes sense.
Rule 2, maintain a specific safe distance, say exactly 15 feet from the nearest member of your own pack.
Wow. So they don't need a grand strategy. They don't have telepathic communication. That simple sensory motor rule run at the food, don't bump into your brother, naturally causes them to spread out, encircle the prey, and instantly exploit any weaknesses in its defense.
Yes, it's beautifully simple.
That algorithmic hunting is brilliant. But there's another piece to the pack puzzle that blew my mind. It's the mathematics of the pack size, and what ecologists call the raven tax.
Oh, the wolf-raven mutualism is a stunning ecological dynamic. If you run the mathematical models purely in terms of per capita meat acquisition, wolves would actually maximize their caloric intake if they only hunted in pairs.
Just two of them.
Right. Two wolves are perfectly capable of taking down a large herbivore through attrition, and then those two wolves would have hundreds of pounds of meat all to themselves. Yet, wolves consistently form much larger packs of 4 to 10 individuals.
So why share the food with 6 other mouths if you don't have to? How does a bird dictate the social structure of an apex predator?
It's because ravens, which indigenous lore very accurately calls wolf birds, are aggressive kleptoparasites.
Kleptoparasites. So they steal food.
Heavily. In places like Yellowstone, ravens are found alongside wolves at winter kills up to 99.7% of the time. The ravens use their aerial vantage point to spot vulnerable, injured prey from miles away.
Oh, so they find the food.
But a raven's beak isn't strong enough to tear through the frozen, thick hide of a dead moose. So they vocalize to awake the wolves. The wolves do the heavy lifting. They act as the openers, tearing into the carcass, and the ravens get to eat the exposed meat.
It's a trade-off.
And the ravens also act as an early warning system, squawking to alert the feeding wolves if a grizzly bear is approaching to steal the kill.
But the ravens aren't just taking a polite little nibble for their services. I mean, imagine trying to eat a pizza while 30 pigeons are actively diving at your face.
A flock of 30 to 100 ravens can descend on a kill site and consume or stash massive quantities of meat in a matter of hours, up to twice their body weight per bird.
It's a huge loss of calories.
If just 2 wolves try to defend a large carcass, that flock of ravens will easily strip it bare. The wolves are mathematically forced to hunt in larger packs of 4 to 10.
That's to deal with the birds.
Exactly. They need the raw numbers to rapidly consume the carcass before the birds steal it all, and to physically defend a perimeter around the meat. The scavenging pressure of a bird fundamentally shaped the group size of the mammalian predator.
It's an incredible display of social plasticity. They cooperate with each other without rigid violence, they form mutualistic bonds with birds, and all of this laid the groundwork for the wolf's greatest evolutionary alliance.
Yes, the big one.
About 20,000 to 40,000 years ago, during the freezing conditions of the mammoth steppe, the wolf bumped into us, Homo sapiens.
It was a collision of 2 highly social, endurance-hunting apex predators. And it wasn't just early humans bravely taming a wild beast. It was a perfect ecological synergy that solved the profound biological weaknesses of both species.
Think about it from the human side. We were bipedal endurance runners. Because we could sweat to thermoregulate, we could actually keep pace with the coursing wolf over long distances.
Very true.
We had projectile weapon spears that could deal immediate massive damage from a safe distance. But our noses were terrible, our hearing was average at best, and we were essentially blind in the dark.
And the wolves had that top-tier sensory perception. They could track a herd for miles. They acted as nocturnal sentinels, warning human camps of approaching Ice Age monsters.
But the wolves lacked morphological weaponry to quickly dispatch massive, cornered prey without taking heavy, often fatal injuries. They had the spear, they had the nose.
It is a perfect biological puzzle coming together. But to make that work, a wild competitor had to become a symbiotic partner. They had to cross a massive neurological divide. They essentially had to hack our brains.
It's the cognitive leap that separates the wild wolf from the domestic dog. And the mechanism is entirely centered on oxytocin.
Right, the bonding hormone.
This is a powerful neuropeptide hormone that is fundamentally responsible for maternal bonding. It's the exact chemical that strengthens the emotional attachment between a human mother and her newborn infant. Field research demonstrated that when a human and a dog engage in sustained mutual gazing, looking into each other's eyes, both the human and the dog experience a significant, measurable spike in oxytocin levels.
Wait, so you're telling me that to survive the Ice Age, this apex predator figured out how to press the biochemical button in our primate brains that says, take care of this baby?
They hijacked our maternal nursing instinct.
They absolutely hijacked our biological hardwiring. And crucially, this is a highly derived, specific evolutionary trait. When researchers conduct the exact same mutual gazing experiments with hand-reared, human-socialized wild wolves, wolves that have lived with humans since birth, the oxytocin spike does not occur.
So it's not just a learned behavior.
No, the wolves do not engage in the gaze in the same way. Over thousands of years, dogs biologically altered their physical expressions. They developed floppy ears. They evolved entirely new facial muscles, the ability to raise their inner eyebrows to give us puppy dog eyes, specifically to communicate with humans and trigger that maternal hormonal loop.
They literally molded their own biology to become our perfect partners.
They did.
So, what does this all mean for you, the listener, maybe sitting at home right now with a dog resting at your feet? It means the wolf's triumph wasn't about being the biggest, most heavily armored monster in the room.
Not at all.
The saber-toothed cats and the short-faced bears with their massive bite forces went extinct because they were too rigid, they were too specialized. The gray wolf survived because it had a multi-tool snout that allowed for dietary versatility. It had a skeletal system built for endurance rather than explosive grappling.
And most importantly, it had the social plasticity to team up with ravens and eventually with us. Adaptability invariably triumphs over pure power.
Which leaves us with a profound paradox to consider. In making that massive cognitive leap to become dogs, in hacking our oxytocin system, and gaining this unprecedented ability to read human minds and follow our pointing fingers, modern dogs have actually lost something fundamental.
Right, because wild wolves consistently outperform domesticated dogs in complex cooperative tasks when working with their own kind. Wolves are vastly superior at coordinating actions simultaneously with other wolves.
So here's a thought for you to ponder long after you finish listening. In our quest to survive a brutal world, we took a wild algorithmic hunter and made it our perfect partner. But in doing so, perhaps we took away its innate ability to truly partner with its own kind.
We made them fluent in human, but they forgot how to speak wolf.
The X-ray of the Pleistocene shows a landscape of terrifying monsters, but the only ones who walked out alive were the ones willing to look us in the eye.